matters or 21 conditions when identifying relevance. Again, that's only necessary to the extent that any objections are lodged. So happy to repeat those instructions now or later. We did just get our YouTube working, so the proceeding should be live streaming over our YouTube channel, in addition to the transcription that will be available from the court reporter. I think with that, we can turn to our agenda, and we'll take this opportunity to practice our raise hand function under the reactions tab at the bottom of the screen. If you are intending to enter an appearance today, whether you're an attorney or a representative of a party or intervener in this matter, please locate the raise hand function under the reactions tab at the bottom of the screen to enter your appearance. We'll start with Attorney Klein, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Fred Klein, and I am here on behalf of Aquarion Water Company of Connecticut. At the appropriate time, we do have one administrative matter, and I will wait until that time.
Thank you. And I imagine Mr. Lawrence is entering an appearance alongside you.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Attorney Wheel.
Morning, Chairman. Tom Wheel for the Office of Consumer Counsel.
Okay, thank you. All right. Mr. Lemke, are you entering an appearance for today's hearing?
Just trying to make the hand raise work here. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Mark Lemke on behalf of Select Neighbors and Smart Water Westport.
Thank you, sir. All right, so we will turn to administrative matters, and Attorney Klein first, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The authority reopened this docket for the limited purpose of investigating Aquarion's compliance with the final decision issued December 18, 2019, which affirmed Westport's special permit to construct 2 water tanks on North Avenue, subject to certain modifications. The limited scope has been reiterated in numerous decisions and rulings by the authority. In its pre-filed testimony, Smart Water Westport seeks to introduce arguments that go way beyond the articulated scope of this proceeding. As a result, this morning, Aquarion filed a motion to strike portions of Smart Water's pre-filed testimony that go beyond the question of Aquarion's compliance with the special permit as modified by PER's decision and are therefore irrelevant. The company raises a standing objection to any discussions of topics that go beyond the company's compliance as discussed. However, recognizing that the authority has not had a chance to review the motion or to rule, we reserve our rights so as not to impede moving forward with today's hearing. In other words, we suggest that we move forward today and discuss the matters raised in the pre-filed testimony, subject, of course, to the chair determination and subsequent ruling on the motion. If the authority grants the motion, issues that go beyond the company's compliance with the special permit as modified by PER's decision would be stricken from the record. If the authority denies the company's motion, we feel confident that the authority will give the weight to those items as it sees fit. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Klein. I do not have a copy of that motion, which means it has not been processed by our system yet. So as you suspected, I will not be ruling on that motion from the bench. However, I would highlight for all folks who are participating in today's hearing that I issued the instructions at the outset of today's hearing. If there is an objection on the grounds of relevance, the responding party will be asked to identify which condition or order that the question gets to, and I will rule on the objection on receipt of that information. I don't have the 4 conditions and well, I do, excuse me, let me rephrase. I have the 4 orders and 21 conditions in front of me. For expediency, I am not going to read the 4 orders and 21 conditions, but I would ask that everyone involved try to locate those, as I will be asking you to point to the order and condition or condition that the question pertains to in ruling on the relevance of the question. Because these are administrative proceedings, we do generally take a broad view of what is allowed into the record, and generally speaking, as an authority when in our decision making, we'll then give whatever weight is due to the evidence. So there may be a degree of latitude allowed today in light of the fact that we have not received or ruled on that motion. But I will confirm for you, Attorney Klein, that we are certainly, it is certainly our practice to give appropriate weight to evidence based on its relevance in reaching a decision.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other administrative matters this morning? I do have one. I think that there is a presentation that we're about to receive from Aquarion. I would ask Attorney Klein that you make sure that presentation is filed in the record if it has not already been.
Yes, we will do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'll take the motion under advisement, and a ruling will be issued into the docket at a later date. Are there any other administrative matters before we begin with our agenda? Okay, so let's turn to our agenda. The first item will be the adoption of the pre-filed testimony, interrogatory responses, and comments by the Aquarion Water Company. So Attorney Klein, if you would like to introduce your witness panel, I will swear them in, and then we will adopt the pre-filed materials. Is it Mr. Lawrence this morning, or are there further witnesses?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Madam Chair. Our witness today is Daniel R. Lawrence, who is Vice President of Engineering and Real Estate for Aquarion. The witness is available to be sworn. I will then go through very brief, direct examination where he will adopt his testimony, and then we can go to his presentation.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Lawrence, if you could please raise your right hand. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Thank you. Oh, interesting. Zoom read my verbal command to raise my hand there. Okay. I'm gonna lower that hand. All right, thank you. Mr. Lawrence has been sworn in. Attorney Klein, please conduct direct.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lawrence, would you please just state your name and position with the company for the record?
Yes, it's Dan Lawrence, Vice President of Engineering and Real Estate at Aquarion Water Company.
And were the pre-filed testimony, interrogatory responses that were prepared under your name done by you or under your control?
Yes.
Do you have any corrections or modifications to any of those documents?
Yes, we have one. Update to DRL 21, I believe. The water main tabulated list. We have a few description corrections, and there was a duplicate entry as well. So we wanted to get those corrected for the record.
And those are being filed as we speak, Madam Chair. If asked those same questions as appeared in your pre-filed testimony and interrogatory responses, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
And do you adopt them as your testimony in this proceeding?
Yes, I do.
Madam Chair, we would move that all of those documents be moved into the record.
So ordered.
Thank you. Mr. Lawrence has his opening presentation.
Thank you. And I think the share screen should be enabled.
Can you see that okay? Okay, great. Well, good morning and thank you for allowing us to make a presentation to demonstrate our compliance with the December 18th, 2019 Pure decision and a special permit issued for the project by the town of Westport on September 24th, 2017. As we get started, I wanted just to remind everyone that the water storage tanks were constructed to address the water needs of the town of Westport. The tanks were sized using historical and projected average day demands, 10% for unmetered consumption, fire protection. Excuse me, I have to move myself out of the window. There we go. Fire protection, emergency storage, future demands, plumbing code savings, as well as 2-day-a-week water savings related to irrigation. This resulted in the 2.15 million gallon tanks, or a total of 4.3 million gallons. The maximum day demands were estimated to be approximately 6.3 million gallons per day. There's been some questions put forward on the use of average day demands and whether the conservation has lowered these demands. As you can see, in 2023, the average day demand was 3.58 million gallons per day, showing an increase in average day demand within Westport, consistent with the average day demand projections shown on slide 2. So you can see that it pretty much moves up the existing curve or trend as shown back in the table. 2, this information was outlined in AECOM's memorandum on August 7, 2017, reviewed by Ty and Bond on February 15th, 2018. Ty and Bond's conclusion was the existing storage tank was inadequate to satisfy current demands while providing adequate reserve storage for emergencies, with nearly 2/3 of the tank being depleted in the early hours during the summer months, primarily related to irrigation demands. The tank design was reviewed and approved by the Connecticut Department of Health on December 7th, 2017, and peer-reviewed by CDM Smith at the request of the town of Westport on March 27, 2018. The authority in its decision found that the multiple engineering reviews support the proposed capacity and the height of the tanks, and that discrepancies in the modeling data, if any, do not substantially change the determinations. The tanks were sized and constructed to meet Westport demands. The tank sizing analysis accounted for the 0.57 million gallons in conservation savings and growth of 0.51 million gallons, as shown on table 4, the tank sizing memorandum, and included here. So you can see the savings that we accounted for, which was done in conjunction with the P&Z at the request of the neighbors to lower and reduce the size of the tanks. So we are still seeing growth, so hopefully being offset by conservation. Mr. Lemke on page 6 and 7 as pre-filed testimony concludes that the North Ave tanks would not be needed with conservation. Mr. Lemke's conclusion, this is just a quote from the independent review expert CDM, that they concurred with the height of the tank, the size of the tank, and they would not recommend it being a lower height, and that it was done reasonably. Mr. Lemke, again, on page 6 and 7 of his pre-filed testimony, concluded that the North Ave tanks would not be needed without conservation. His conclusion is based on comparing tables 3.1, which is this larger table here, and table 4.1 in the Southwest Fairfield County Region Supply Improvement Status Report dated January 17th. Table 3.1 is the improvement alternative numbering reference and not an identified recommendation, as it includes solutions for with and without conservation. Basically, that table reference a reconciliation from the numbering system from the October 28th, 2016 improvement plan to the current one in January. That's the intent of that table. Mr. Lemke should have been comparing tables 3, and 4.1, which are shown on the right-hand side, which compares the needed improvements to increase the capacity to Southwest Fairfield County. This time, the company has a plan to implement improvements related to this, including 2.1, 3.1, 3.2, and 4.1, and table 3.3. And which we are not planning to implement 2 improvements at this time. 2.2 and 4.2 will wait to those will not be needed till at least 2045. That results in roughly a capacity of 12 to 14 MGD, which is somewhat similar to what was required for the conservation if you see table 4.1 below. On page 9 of Mr. Lemke's testimony, he points to an alternative 1.2, new transmission main from Hemlock's water treatment plant to the Wilton Road Regional Wilton Road Pump Station, excuse me, Wilton Road Pump Station to Belden Hill. This alternative was included in the October 28th, 2016 status update. The alternative includes evaluating the possibility of installing a 42-inch main from the Hemlock's water treatment plant to the Wilton Road Pump Station to move water to the Southwest Fairfield County. This water would have supplied water to Westport at a hydraulic grade line of 240 and would still have required water storage to meet Westport's demands of 4.3 million gallons. Water tanks would have been required to be approximately 25 feet higher than the tanks installed at North Avenue to meet the hydraulic grade line of 240. This alternative also looked at the possibility of using the altitude valve and keeping the existing tank. This concept would have resulted in the existing tank having limited water turnover and causing water quality issues. The company did not pursue this alternative and changed alternatives. The existing alternative that's represented, if you were to look at that report, represents a significant amount of 42-inch pipe, which is probably roughly around $3,000 a foot. That alternative would have well exceed $200 million between the pump station and just the pipelines. So one of the reasons of many that we chose not to pursue that alternative, although at face value, it does seem like a reasonable alternative. But again, the tanks would have had to be higher at North Ave by 25 feet to account for that change in grade. Westport is not the hub of water for water systems, as Mr. Lemke suggests. The larger surface water plants in our main system in Southwest Fairfield County provide that majority of what's needed. Water comes from the Hemlock treatment plant to serve customers in Westport. The Hemlock treatment plant is located in Fairfield as well, and it also provides water to Southwest Fairfield County. The flow from Hemlock to Southwest Fairfield County through Westport has been in place for 30 to 40 years. Make sure you don't miss that. We've been moving water through Westport on the north side of Westport. Basically, it goes from our Hemlock's facility up into our Greenfield Hill water level, down through a regulator, and then into our Wilton Road pump station. The water is transferred from this pump station to our Belden Hill tanks in Wilton and then down to Southwest Fairfield County. Please note there are also a number of questions related to FOIA, which we will not be addressing, that Mr. Lemke has addressed within his pre-filed testimony, as that's being handled through a separate agency. I hope this clarifies a few items before we start discussing and demonstrating our compliance with the special permit and PURE's decision. For the presentation, I'll be presenting the PURE conditions, PURE orders, and any remaining special conditions. There's a table at the end which correlates the PURE conditions and the special conditions for anyone's benefit. So with that, I will move on. Unless anyone. Okay. There we go. So PURE condition 1 on slide 5. And I don't intend to read the conditions because that would lengthen the presentation unless someone chooses me to do that. You can read them yourself as I speak if that is okay with everyone. Okay. Thank you. So PURE condition 1, the company had the tank redesigned to lower the roof height of the roof peak, as you can see, by approximately 7 feet as shown here, meeting the compliance requirement. Bottom of the tank is elevation 160. So you can see the dome at the top here, this arc, and this is the new flat roof, and that a difference of 7 feet. PURE condition 2 on slide 6. The company complied with PURE condition 2. The P&Z included the reference to the drawings in the special permit. So in some ways, we're not responsible for that, but that's what had to be done, and it was incorporated. Company completed the landscaping. Company completed landscaping conforms with revision 7 of the plan dated November 8, 2018, with modest modifications allowed pursuant to the direction of the landscape review team as permitted under PURE condition 6 and the P&Z special permit. Gail Kelly, the ombudsman, in an email on March 18, 2022, shared that the town's attorney, Ira Bloom, advised them that moving trees to better screen the tanks would be considered a modest adjustment, confirmed in an email on April 7, 2022 from P&Z Chair Danielle Dobbin. You can see the landscape plan here, and then you can also see the existing plans from the permit review set with the inside and outside diameters noted below at 105.3 for the inside diameter and the outside diameter of 17.5. Again, this is the permit review set. I just wanted to address, and then the color, I just flip back. Following neighbors did request a color change, as many knows, we'll go over that later, but the color is also included in permit condition 2. Right. So slides 9 and 10 will cover the sound and light emissions, which is pure condition 3, which changes condition 2 of the special permit. As noted in the compliance filing to Pura Order 2, the light sensor, I'm going to turn so you can see this, I apologize. So this is the light sensor right here, so the pump station. The light sensor above is from the North Ave pump station security light. The light had a 0 night sky feature that was reset, so the light would broadcast to the ground only when the proximity motion detector triggered it on. So that has been resolved and was resolved right away. The second piece of that particular condition was that the company installed IAC quiet duct commercial silencers at the generator outlet and exhaust. As a result, the ambient noise on North Avenue exceeds the silencers, the generator itself. So this is the existing condition here about the silencers, and you can see the silencers in this picture, and you can see them from a front face here, these acoustic baffles. So they really do a nice job of dampening the noise. And that was filed. Pure condition 4, starting on slide 11. This pertains to the construction timeline. The company complied with condition 4. The construction activities commenced on June 23rd, 2020. North tank was placed into service on June 29th, 2021, and the south tank was placed into service on January 5th, 2022. Both tanks were constructed within 2 years. Originally, the final painting of the tanks was scheduled for June 22. However, final painting of the tanks was postponed because the neighbors requested a color change, which required approval of the P&Z and Pura. Pura issued its decision approving a color change on August 5th, 2022, and the company completed final coating of the tanks on September 21st, 2022. The landscaping phase of the project was started in the spring of 22 and was completed as of September 27th, 2022. It should be noted the company worked through the neighbors' request for change in color. It did not wait until the painting was completed before starting landscaping, which I think is important, as this would have created a really large delay in the landscaping portion of the project if we had waited to paint and then put landscaping in. By starting landscaping while waiting for the paint color decision, the landscape was able to be completed in September of 22. It should be noted that 5 trees were replaced in May of 24 as part of maintenance of the project site. These trees did not survive the winter of 23-24. Work was reviewed with the town of Westport and does not constitute a new date for completion of the landscaping plan, as suggested by Mr. Lemke on page 26 of his pre-final testimony. Pure condition 5, which relates to the landscape fund. The company provided $225,000 to the landscape fund. The neighbors selected attorney Neil Phillips to be the landscape fund administrator. The landscape review team, the LRT, recommended no additional plantings be selected until the landscape screening on the company's parcel was completed, so neighbors could identify any visual gaps. The work was completed and the independent administrator has expended $222,934.42 so far. And he's holding on for a little bit. Just a representation of how the distribution of funds was placed by the neighbors. Pure condition 6, slide 14. The company is in compliance with pure condition 6. The LRT, the landscape review team, is made up of the landscape architect, an independent arborist, and the tree warden of Westport. One neighbor, the company's project manager, and the ombudsman also attended all meetings to listen and provide feedback from the neighbors. The group met on a bi-weekly basis during the installation of landscaping starting on March 9th, 2022. And we have provided all those minutes of those meetings. Pure condition 7 relates to the landscaping bond. So the company did submit the landscaping bond that was required. A copy of it's to my right on the slide here for reference, and was submitted with my pre-filed testimony. Pure condition 8 relates to pre-construction building assessments. The company identified 20 homeowners that qualified for inspection prior to blasting. 3 neighbors did not respond to the company's request, and 2 homeowners declined. Prior to the start of drilling and blasting, an independent third party conducted inspections at the 15 homes that requested inspections to document existing conditions and establish vibration monitors. A completion report letter dated July 27, 22 was completed, as you can see from HSI, and included it within my pre-file testimony. Pure condition 9 and 10 both relate to the ombudsman. You can see that basically it tells you who the ombudsman needs to be communicating with and needs to establish an email list, which obviously occurred. In May 2020, Attorney Gail Kelly, a former attorney for the town of Westport, was chosen to be the ombudsman. Attorney Kelly's appointment was approved by the town, the neighbors, and Aquarion. On July 16, 2020, a conference call with the town's school superintendent, police department, and the ombudsman, and the company took place. The ombudsman was in contact with the neighbors and the town and Aquarion on a weekly, if not more frequent basis during the construction period up to December 2022. And just read the rest of the notes. All right, pure condition 11 relating to the building permit. Required to coordinate with the building inspector, which we did, and obtained a building permit, which was issued on June 4th, 2020, with a copy to the right for your reference, as well as included in pre-filed testimony. Slide 20, pure condition 12, relates to the independent site monitor. On May 8th, 2020, Redness & Mead, a local engineering firm, was selected to serve as the independent site monitor. The firm was recommended by the town of Westport. The independent site monitor visited the site approximately at monthly intervals to review the progress of work in compliance with the permits. This is included in pre-filed testimony as well. The independent site monitor was to report and provide documentation to the town for review. Pure condition 13, special condition 20. Company has not and will not allow radio frequency transmission facilities, including cellular communication antennas, at the property. So we comply with that and agree with that moving forward. Pure condition 14, which refers to a number of water main improvements that were planned and slightly accelerated. The company has been actively working on water main replacement projects in Westport as outlined in DRL 21, which reflects updates to the project timelines initially provided to the company in the company's September 23rd response to PURA. Specifically, the company plans to complete the outstanding water main replacements on Saugatuck Avenue, Duck Pond, and Maple Ave in 2024, and Riverside Avenue, Charles, and New Creek in 2025. One of the challenges we have is that Saugatuck Avenue in Riverside, if you don't know that area well, is the same street. It runs north-south on the, if you will, the west side of Westport. So we can't do both projects at the same time on the state road. And then we also had the work on Charles Street in Riverside, another portion that we had tried to do a year or so ago. It was delayed because DOT was doing work on 95 in that same area. So we're going to spread the projects across 2 years and finish that up. The company and other utilities use information from an insurance rating agency known as ISO as a guideline. ISO defined a rate of flow for 15 hydrants in Westport that were used for the project evaluation. The rate of flow that would be needed to fight a major fire at each of the 15 locations. These rates of flow are a guideline, and the American Water Works Association acknowledges in the manual and distribution system requirements for fire protection that it's very unusual for an existing distribution system to provide these flows. From 2018 through 2023, the company has replaced 33,451 feet of water main in Westport, An additional 10,680 feet will be replaced in 24 and slash lined, and the 25, 6,559 feet will be placed. And the improvements to the system have made a positive impact on water system reliability and fire protection. The table you're looking at, it represents fire flow results that were taken from 2019 and 2023. And you have in this column here, the ISO needed fire flow, which is the guideline that's established by ISO. The available fire flow that was tested by Aquarion in 2019. And this is the test in 2023 in this column. And as you can see, and you're just starting from, and I'm going to use the report numbers. The report numbers and the ISO numbers don't match out. So we put a correlating table for everyone. So one goes from, has a needed fire flow for an example of 2,500, 2019, we were at 1447, and now we're at 3181. And you can follow that down. 10 of the 15 right now meet or exceed the ISO guideline. And the remaining one down here on sea spray is down at the bottom of Saugatuck and Duck Pond, which will be addressed this year. So that should increase dramatically once that occurs. We're replacing 8-inch main down Saugatuck Avenue and through Duck Pond with some new 12-inch main to increase the fire flows and address, it is an older main as well. So we have some pretty significant improvements. You can see here, Indian Hill and Ferry Lane and Hiawatha was 900, now it is 3,184. That is right off of Saugatuck Avenue. So you can see that benefit as well as in other areas. So dramatic increases really everywhere. And we've done other improvements in Westport besides those that also have benefits. So hopefully you can see that. At this time, we will complete the remainder of the water main work and continue to identify needed water main improvements to address reliability, water quality, and fire protection. The intent was that hopefully if all things work out, the 12 of the 15 would meet or exceed. Yeah, so Pure Order 1. Pure Order 1, the special permit has other conditions that are not specifically addressed in Pure's decision. These additional conditions are addressed in the following slides. So we'll address some special permit conditions that were not addressed before. So special condition 1A is related to tank height. And I just wanted to go through some things. So Grand Water's compliance with special permit condition 1A. The special permit actually reads that the height of the from average grade for the north tank is shown as 31.85 and 37.75. The August 25, 2017 drawings were actually the drawings with the dome. So those numbers represent the dome. The height from average grade for the north tank as constructed, the as-built, is 25.14 feet above average grade and 31.13 above average grade for the south tank. And I think one of the things as we think about this, and I know Mr. Lemke spent some time looking at heights and various things, but you do not account for any of the tank or any building below grade. So average grade height is measured from average grade, which is a calculation we did and provided to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then also, as you can see here, the exemptions, there is a tank vent on the top of the tank, which Mr. Lemke pointed out. And there's also safety rails, and those are both exempt from the height calculation. And so when you look at, that's right here in this ordinance. So when you look at the south tank, and you look at the north tank, you get to the 31.13 from average grade for the south tank and the 25.14. So you take the top elevation and the average grade. So for example, the south tank has an elevation, peak roof elevation of 219.13 and the average grade elevation of 182, subtract the 2 and you get the 31.13, and do the same thing on the north tank. And again, just to reiterate, the height calculation does not include the tank vent, does not include the self-closing safety gates and rails, and it does not include anything below grade, including the sub-base material, which Mr. Lemke measured down to 177, which was the bottom of essentially crushed stone. In addition, we had filed Pure 9 Attachment 1. We just expanded it to include various information around the tank diameters, the peak roof elevation, and the tank heights, which we've been going over, and associated documentation. So that's what's on this slide, really for everyone's benefit. It kind of when Pure 9 was responded to, it asked for a limited amount of information, so we just expanded it here for the record. All right. So special condition, special condition 3, the noise ordinance. You can read the noise ordinance and the related emergency. Those come straight from the special permit, the italicized part as well. And then our complaints. Company has complied with the noise ordinance. When neighbors notified the company with concerns with noise at the site during construction, the company promptly addressed those concerns. In no case was the company cited for violating the noise ordinance. In my pre-filed testimony, there are a few issues that came up, but again, the company dealt with them quickly, and we moved on with those particular situations. Special permit condition 4, which is slide 30, is really around the vehicle and material delivery traffic plan. So there was a big concern, if those who don't remember, on how materials would be delivered to the North Ave tank, so not to disrupt the town, Staples High School, and all of that, things that were going on in town. So on July 16, 2020, a conference call was held with the town school superintendent, police department, ombudsman, and the company. It took place to discuss plans for bringing equipment and materials to the site. Construction traffic routing plan and minutes of the meeting were submitted to the town first selectman on July 16, 2020. And with that was this map, which shows the route from in which they took. On I believe a couple occasions, some contractors did not take that route, but that was corrected as we had many people delivering equipment, and materials. So landscape inspection. So this is special condition 5, and there's a couple. This covers slides 32, 33, and 34. Company has and will continue to maintain the property by regular lawn maintenance and seasonal landscape support. This is consistent with the replacement of the 5 trees in May of 24 that died in the winter of 23 and 24. The company will comply with this future condition and has submitted a $25,000 landscaping bond to the town of Westport as required by the permit. That's part of pre-filed testimony as well. I wanted to share a couple of pictures as this represents discusses around our renderings and basically screening. So what you have in front of you right now, to the left is as proposed in September 2017, that we call the north rendering, versus a picture of actually where it is today. I will say, and I think I'll give the neighbors all credit, the change in color was really beneficial. So we should be able to see full screening in 3 to 5 years. But that's the north section. On the south, just get there. The south rendering, which is taken in this view. You can see the rendering here. And this is an as-planted rendering. So was the north. And then you have a situation where you have the plantings here working through screening. And again, I think the color change also does help mute the tank a little bit. So that was helpful. Should be noted that Mr. Lemke's pre-filed testimony included a picture on page 24 from approximately the south rendering area. The picture is from the ISM report. And as you can see, I didn't put it up here. The construction trailer is still in the site. The south view on slide 34 shows a current condition, while the plantings from May 24. Concerns from residents about gaps in the landscaping will be addressed as part of the 3 and 5 year inspection evaluations, if not already addressed by the landscaping on site and the landscaping fund. Additional area concerns will be addressed as needed. In comparison to the renderings to actuals confirms the landscaping plan is doing what was planned. Landscaping was completed in September 22, and the company submitted its as-built showing the landscaping in December 22. In April 2024, the town of Westport determined that it would have a third-party review of the landscape installation. Although this is not uncommon, it is unfortunate that the town waited for this long to inform the company of their preference. The company has paid the $9,600 for the review and expects to have a report by June 19th, 2024, according to the town of Westport. Company does not anticipate any issues with the third-party review of the landscaping. So special condition 6 on slide 35 relates to the zoning permit and related town approvals. All departments and agencies in Westport approved and signed off on the site plan approval, special permit, emergency contact information was provided, and the approval was filed on the land records. It's also filed in pre-filed testimony. Mr. Lemke expresses concern on page 45 of his pre-filed testimony that the company did not obtain a wetlands permit for the project. It should be noted that the Conservation Commission reviewed the plans, provided comments, and issued an administrative approval, which is referenced in the special permit. You can see the language here of the special permit from the Conservation Department on bullet 1 and from the Engineering Department bullet 2 as 2 examples of how that was addressed within the special permit. And then there's the special permit piece of it. Special condition 8 relates to stone walls. And this was one easy one. There were no stone walls on the project meeting this requirement. So Aquarion met that requirement. Special condition 9, which also is Pure Order 4. The as-built survey was submitted to Planning and Zoning on December 12th, 2022, and the related compliance filing to Pure Order 4 submitted on December 19th, 2022. Comments were provided to the company, and a revised as-built was submitted on April 21st, 2023. I think it's important to note that getting comments back on an as-built drawing for a development or a project is not uncommon. It's pretty common to do, as a lot of times the towns have preferences in how they want to see drawings. So the drawings and any clarifications they would like to. So Aquarion was in compliance with special condition 9 and Pure Order 4. The as-built conditions, this is related to special condition 9. The inside diameter of the tanks were 105 feet, and the outside diameter of the tanks were 107.5 feet. Special condition 10, landscape maintenance. And it's basically requires Aquarion to maintain the good physical condition throughout the duration of use. So other than the 5 trees that needed to be replaced because they did not survive the winter of 23 and 24, the plants are in good condition, the trees are in good condition. I think we've demonstrated our ability to take care of things as they come. And the company has and will continue to maintain the property by regular lawn maintenance and seasonal landscape support. We also are doing some maintenance on the rain garden as well. Special condition 11, conditional approval, which refers to the conditional approval. Each and every condition is an integral part of the commission's decision. Should any of the conditions on appeal from this decision be void or of no legal effect, then the conditional approval is likewise void. So confusing, and unfortunately we did not have to deal with that, but all special aspects of the special permit have been completed to date in compliance with the approved plans. So we have Pure Order back to Pure Order 2. So Pure Order 2 had to do with the sound and light compliance. This is also addressed in special permit condition 2. We addressed this under Pure condition 3. As you remember, the light sensor on the pump station and the acoustic baffles on the generator. So I'm not going to repeat that here, but wanted to remind you that that's been covered. Sorry. So Pure condition 3, special permit condition 1. So basically it's you're allowed to build flat roofs and recover the reasonable and prudent costs. The company constructed the 2 tanks with flat roofs in compliance with this order. Pure condition 4, again, no later than 90 days after completion of the tanks, the company was to file as-built drawings. Company is in compliance with Pure condition 4 and has addressed under special permit number 9 previously. So that is there is, and there is the correlating sheet between the special permit conditions and the pure conditions and the pure orders for your benefit. But that is the conclusion of my presentation. And I will bring that down if that makes sense, unless you want me to leave it up.
Let's leave it up for a second. I think we're
Okay.
gonna turn first to authority staff for cross-examination, and I'll let Attorney LaFave tell me if it makes more sense to take it down. But if you could hold one moment, Attorney Klein.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Would the chair like us to file this as late file 1?
I don't think we're gonna do a late file exhibit hearing, so you can just file it as correspondence in the record, and that will be it will admit it that way. Thank you.
We will do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll start with cross from Attorney LaFave, please.
Hi, Mr. Lawrence. I'm Arthur LaFave. I'm a staff attorney with Pura. As I just have a few questions, and when I refer, I know the numbering can get a little complicated because there's the Pura conditions in the underlying decision, and then how they are numbered in the conform special permit. So to make it easier, I'm going to be referring to the conform special permit, which is the Westport Planning and Zoning Special Permit conformed to the authority's decision in docket number 171034. And that is located as attachment 1 to the August 15th, 2022 Aquarion Water Company's written comments. So first, I'm going to ask questions about condition 1A. And this is relevant to Pura's order number 1 from the underlying decision. So I'm referring to your pre-filed testimony on page 3, where you testified about the company's compliance with condition number 1. And you mentioned that the revised tank design, which changed the tank roofs from domed to flat, and in response to Pura interrogatory Pura 37, the company produced that revised tank design as attachment 1. And in response to Pura interrogatory Pura 1, the company provided documentation to show that they had received administrative approval. So I just wanted to get that out there first before I ask my questions. But is it correct that in order to comply with condition 1 of the conform special permit, the tank height, diameter, and setback measurements of the as-built plan filed on December 19th, 2022 must comply with the revised tank design that was approved by Westport Planning and Zoning in June 2020?
A lot of dates there for me. I apologize.
Yeah. And I can repeat that. Sorry, because
so we had the August 17 plan review set, which was the dome filing, right? That was referenced in the Pure order and the special permit. And then there was a revised set issued and approved by Planning and Zoning. That's the document in which we would have to comply with, which would have the flat roof and associated setbacks.
And that's the revised tank design that you're referring to from June 2020, correct?
Just to clarify, there's just so many dates. My apologies.
If it helps, this was I might not have done a good job of it, but the what I mentioned earlier, this was submitted in response to interrogatory Pura 37.
Wait 1 second, please. Look at that. Thank you. So the drawings in Pura 37 are dated February 2020.
Yes, that goes to my question actually. So, so in response to Pura 37, that those drawings are dated February 2020. However, give me a second. However, in response to that interrogatory, Pura 37, it stated that that they were submitted on June 4th, 2020. I just want to confirm that if they were, I guess my question is why, do you know why they are dated February 2020? If in the response, Aquarion stated that they were submitted on June 4th, 2020.
I'm gonna need to clarify that. Do you have if I can take a moment, or we can do that at a later in the hearing and come back?
That is up to you, Mr. Lawrence, if you want to take a read-in.
Yeah, that would probably be the easiest, because some of these things may be like that since there's so many dates over a 7-year, 8-year period.
Sure, let's mark that read-in A.
Yeah, if I could clarify what I'm trying to ask here is I'm just trying to make sure that that document that I'm referring to as the revised tank design, that it's dated February 2020.
I understand your question.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on. So part of condition number 1A is that that Aquarion shall be allowed to construct the tanks with a dome height that is less than shown in the reference site plan, subject to administrative approval only by the commission staff or the zoning officer. So when it was submitted on June 4th, 2020, was it submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and and is the building department part of the Planning and Zoning Commission?
So you're asking, 1 second, I just want to look at something, if you don't mind, in the presentation.
Okay.
Back to forgive me for scrolling, everyone. Can you just repeat your question? I apologize. I thought I could find what I was looking for.
Yeah, I can rephrase it. So in Pura 30, in the response to interrogatory Pura 37,
Yep.
it stated that Aquarion submitted the revised tank design to the Planning and Zoning Commission and received a zoning permit. But it was also stated that it was submitted to the building department. Is the building department part of the Westport Planning and Zoning Commission?
I don't know how they're structured, but you don't get a building permit without a zoning approval. That's all I do know is all the years of working business. And we did receive the building permit. So it means we did receive an administrative approval on the zoning side in order to get a building permit.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to condition number 2 from the conform special permit. And I'm referring to a response from Aquarion to interrogatory Pura 5. In case you don't have that in front of you, I'm gonna read it really quickly. It says, attachment 3 of the August 29th, 2022 Smart Water Westport written comment submission is a recording that took place when the company's contractor was not on site and no work was occurring. In both cases, the video records a momentary noise that was incorrectly identified as the company's pump station. The noise recorded was that of the air conditioning unit on the roof of the pump station. The company has had the air conditioning unit inspected, and the inspection did not find any malfunction of the unit. The company is evaluating the noise levels to understand how the noise compares to other similar facilities and local noise ordinances. So my question is, did the company evaluate the noise levels to see how it compares to similar facilities and local noise ordinances, following up on the company's response to PURA 5?
Yeah, so we did have a maintenance technician go out to the site and service the equipment. It is an air conditioner, much like any other person would have an air conditioner in the summer. Our air conditioners are put in to preserve our equipment so they don't overheat. And we found it to be very similar to other equipment that we use. The maintenance tech fixed a little bit of maintenance, but other than that, it's reflective of a typical air conditioner for one of our systems. So.
Okay, and give me one moment. So to clarify, were there any remedial measures needed for this noise coming from the air conditioning unit?
At this time, we did not implement any remedial measures, as we feel that the air conditioner represents typical equipment we might have at a facility like ours or in a residential unit.
Okay. Okay. So moving on to condition 7 of the conform special permit. I have just a few more questions. Can you clarify the dates that construction reached completion and the date in which all work was completed?
Hang on, I'm just going to get to I remember what number that was. Do you remember what the prior condition was offhand?
It's pure condition 4.
Okay, thank you. So here is our construction record. So we completed construction on September 27th, 22 of the landscaping, which included the fencing and all the related work, and then submitted as-built within the 90 days. So the tanks were completed as noted on North Tank on June 29th, 2021, and the South Tank in service on January 5th, 2022. So that was within the 2 years required. And then we had the painting change color and then completed the plantings and associated work. And then after that, we had a couple of trees die for maintenance purposes, as I said. And then as part of the planning and zoning review, they told us that our impervious area was over by 120 square feet, which means that when they put the driveway in, they fattened one edge. So we did remove that so that would not be it. But that they just went out and cut out a little bit of asphalt at the end. So, but construction was completed in September of 22.
Okay. And so to be more specific, in the industry, when we're talking about a construction completion date, what exactly does that mean? I guess I'll leave it at that for now. Well, I guess what exactly does construction completion date mean in the industry?
It would be construction completion would be all the work identified on a set of plans completed, right? Not just a portion of a project, not just the tanks, but the landscaping and all the related elements. This is the swales. Because if you were just to put the tanks in service, the site wasn't graded yet. So your height above average grade would have been wrong if you had done as-built at that time. So, I mean, I've been in the business for 30+ years and consulting for 22. The construction plan set is a construction plan set, and therefore you must complete all of it before construction is complete.
Okay, so the construction, would construction not be complete until the tanks were painted and landscape was completed?
That would be my perspective, yes.
Okay. Bear with me one moment. Okay, and my last question is, and I'm referring to the company's response to interrogatory Pura 49. Is it correct that the landscape phase began in spring 2022? This might be on this slide, but I just want to clarify.
What number did you say?
This was, I'm referring to the company's response to interrogatory Pura 49, but
I think I can answer that without looking. Let me look anyway. If that's okay with you. So if you got this construction, so we did start landscaping in the spring. Again, the intention was to get an early start, and then the tank color. But the idea was to get the tank color done first, paint the tanks. But given the neighbors changing their color, we chose to work concurrently in lieu of delaying and filing, because we could have filed a delay request because normally you would paint the tanks so you don't paint the trees. But we decided not to do that and work concurrently. So I think and I just need to double check the exact date. Maybe I can read that in because I don't have it here, which I thought I did. The date of exactly when we started planting. So we had to take a bit of we had some trees show up that were not in good condition, and other trees, so we had some delays there. So.
Okay, and following up on your response, is it correct that the landscape phase ended September 28th, 2022?
September 27th.
September 27th, okay. I think there's just I think there was some dates that I found one date that said the 27th. This says your presentation says the 27th, but I think in response to interrogatory Pura 49, it said the 28th, so just wanted to clarify. And my last question is trying to clarify what is meant by what is the industry standard for the timeline of a planting season in Connecticut. So is there multiple planting seasons in a year, or is the planting season in Connecticut a specific time period in a year?
I am not an arborist or landscape architect. To clarify that, I know that there is planting seasons, I would imagine, in the spring and the fall. I know there is one in the fall. So.
Okay, thank you. That concludes my questions.
Thank you. I think that completes the cross from authority staff. So we will allow cross-examination from Smartwater Westport, Mr. Lemke, and then any other participants who have cross. So Mr. Lemke, if you would like to conduct cross-examination of the company.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we turn to the page 2 of that slide? But before I start, let me just say that essentially we are discussing a parking ticket of a bank robbery here. And we spent more than an hour now on basically the same presentation, the same pre-filing that Aquarium already did last week. So we spent and wasted, I'm sorry to say that, considerable amount of time. All right, Mr. Lawrence, page 2, please. So it starts at 1985, goes to, and then stops 2017. Is Westport the only town in Connecticut or Southwest Connecticut in your service area that has actually a decrease in water consumption, and all the others are going significantly down?
So this is 1987 start. And I don't quite understand the question relative to the growth that is shown in Westport.
Question, I rephrased the question. So the last water supply plan you had is in 26, and in the rate case in 2013, your company stated that there's a significantly decrease in water consumption all over your service area. So accordingly, Westport must be the only one that has an increase in water consumption.
I'm going to have to object to this question. I believe that it does not go directly to any of the conditions in the special permit. I would ask Mr. Lemke to point out where in the conditions of the special permit there is a discussion of, where he is going. And if he cannot, I would request that he move on to other areas of inquiry that are within the scope of this proceeding.
I mean, Attorney Klein, you put on this page, I wasn't about to start with this, but you put it on, so I may, just follow up on it, because it is actually very important to all the permits and the things that come.
Okay, Attorney Klein, I think that the information on the slide does open the door to a limited cross-examination on this subject, but Mr. Lemke, I'm granting you limited flexibility here to briefly follow up on this subject matter, and then I'm going to ask for a showing of relevance if we go too much further down this line. So if you want to restate your question, I will overrule the objection for now.
Yes, the question is based on the 2006 water supply plan. It seems like water supply, water usage, water consumption has been significantly going down, especially as the company testified in its rate case in 2013. And Westport seems to be the only town in Connecticut in Aquarium service area. There's an increasing trend line of metered consumption and water consumption.
I don't know. Are you asking me?
Is that true?
I mean, this conversation is about the town of Westport. The graph that shows Westport having increasing demands, which we know is related to a bit of growth, irrigation demands, and change of use in the facilities and buildings around.
So the question,
I think
is that the only town where you see this trend?
No, we have other communities we see growth. You do see what you're referring to is plumbing code savings. And that's where you see the reduction in base savings, where people, because of water fixtures. But it doesn't change if people are using irrigation or have larger homes. Plumbing savings is offset by the number of fixtures or the amount of water used. So I do not have the information about all the rest of our systems in front of me to make a complete answer, but I believe that this answer should be focused within Westport.
Well, I'm referring specifically to Attorney Klein's testimony in the rate case where he said, there's no mistake, the trend is going down. And this stops in 2017, right before the results of the water conservation program is coming in. So based on my estimation from 2006 until now, water consumption is down by 40%, which is in summer 30% irrigation plus the trend. And not even in there are the new measures like tier-based pricing, AMI, and so forth. I'm bringing this up because you started it.
Okay.
I don't understand how I started it, but I think the information that's associated with the Westport tank is on this slide.
Okay. I appreciate that. Mr. Limke, we will take your testimony subsequent to this panel. So I think we can move on from this line of questioning for now, please.
All right. The North Avenue service area, can you clarify what that is, please?
North Avenue service area is serviced by the North Avenue pump station.
Okay. Okay.
I'm asking you a question, what you're asking me to clarify.
Well, what is the Westport North Avenue service area? That's my question.
Well, as you may or may not know, the pump station serves one water level and the tank serves another level. So there's two different areas. There are other, like the Greenfield Hill into the northern section with a different one, but there's two, one a pumped level and one a revenue level.
So the pump station serves approximately 1,300 customers, is that correct? Approximately?
I'd have to look that up. I do not know.
Okay. If you could look that up, that would be great. And according to your response to the interrogatories, those 1,300 customers use a peak hour demand of 4.4 million gallon. Correct?
Can you please refer to what interrogatory you're reading from? So I may look at it.
That is AWW50, attachment 1, page 1.
AWW50?
Yes.
And what year was that filed?
I have to look it up. We can move on. You can answer it later.
I don't.
Okay. So I'll move on. So you put the North Avenue service area. So like you said, the pump station service area, you put up on your website as the Westport water consumption. Why is that?
I can answer, but I don't understand the relevance. Because it's a metered, so that what's put on our website is showing usage. The boundaries of Fairfield and Westport are not metered. So it's very difficult at times to just get all of the Westport data. We can do it, but it takes a lot of time to define that through a bunch of reports. So for the purposes of representation, we use the North Ave pump station, which it's easy to quantify. That's a proxy for the whole town.
Right, that's interesting. So all the other towns are Fairfield, Darien, Greenwich are total. Just Westport, you use the pump station data. Is that correct?
I understand the relevance of this question.
Oh, it's very relevant because it's based on your consumption chart, right?
I would have to renew my objection. I don't see where this responds to any of the articulated conditions in the special permit as modified by the authority's decision, which is the scope of this proceeding.
Mr. Lim-
So this is, and my testimony, and this is the same thing, goes to the compliance of the zoning and construction permit condition. And it focuses on Aquarion's dishonesty in procuring those permits. So that's why this is very relevant, right?
All right,
I,
I understand, Mr. Lemke. I think you can make those arguments, those legal arguments in your brief. For purposes of today's hearing, I have to sustain the objection, which means that I need you to move on to another subject matter, as that doesn't directly relate to one of the conditions that Pura has adopted. It goes to the underlying permit. So I will allow you to address that argument in your brief, but we cannot conduct any further questions of that at this time.
All right, let's move on. Let's move to the Southwest Regional Pipeline and the basic assumption. There were a couple of questions, and I'd like to point you to SWW 42 to provide the agenda and Aquarion Council meetings and discussions with Pura, right? Do you have it?
I object to this line of questioning. Again, the Southwest Pipeline is not mentioned in any of the conditions in the special permit as modified by the decision. This is going way beyond the limited scope of this proceeding, which is limited to compliance with those specific conditions.
Mr. Lemke, can you identify the order or condition that the question pertains to, please?
Yes, it goes to the first one, building the water tank. So I question that the water tank as such were needed. And I'm also saying, and that's why I'm trying to get Aquarion to respond, that Aquarion knew from the very beginning that the tanks were unnecessary. And the Southwest Regional Pipeline Study, which the authority ordered Aquarion to publish, showed that we had, instead of the 10% in 10 years, we had a 30% reduction almost immediately. And at the time of the permit application, Aquarion knew it and downplayed water conservation.
I'll renew my objection. The conditions require, they direct the company to construct the tanks in accordance with the specified plans. And the company, as Mr. Lawrence has shown, has done so. Any discussion along the lines that Mr. Lemke is raising is beyond the scope of those conditions and therefore irrelevant to today's proceeding.
The authority allowed and asked for Aquarion to answer these questions. So I don't understand why it shouldn't be allowed to respond to your responses.
The authority was very liberal in allowing discovery, and the rules of discovery are questions are permitted if they are relevant or are likely to lead to relevant information. And therefore, in my opinion, the authority was very lenient in giving leeway to Smart Water to ask its questions, and the company complied and answered those questions. But just because a question is asked and answered in discovery does not mean that it is relevant. And this proceeding is limited in scope to the conditions in the special permit, and the pipeline, the Southwest Pipeline, and other things that you are raising go well beyond the limited scope of this proceeding.
I object and say that the authority allowed that the evidence here, the evidence in the prior case here, as well as the rate case, are all part of this evidence. So we're talking about a lot of evidence, and it only because the authority allowed, the authority put hearings on YouTube, the authority allowed a new way of transparency that we had even be able to discover this evidence, right? Without that, it wouldn't be possible.
We
Okay,
are in a reopened docket, and the reopened docket has its own scope of inquiry, which has been set out many times in the authority's various orders. And I just be repeating myself, by saying that if you look at the reopening order and you look at all of the other orders in this proceeding, the reopening is limited to the company's compliance with the special permit as modified by the authority's decision. Your line of questioning goes way beyond those conditions and whether or not the company has complied.
okay, thank you, gentlemen. I am gonna sustain the objection for these questions to continue and need them to be related to a condition or order from the permit. As I instructed just a few minutes ago, Mr. Lemke, you are free to make these legal arguments in your brief to the extent that you can connect them to one of the conditions or orders. But for purposes of today's hearing, I do need you to move on to a different line of question, please.
All right, can we look at the pictures again? And I'm referring to this now, what we just saw. Mr. Lawrence, the pictures?
The rendering is in photos related to the tank.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Did you alter the picture in any way or form, the one to the right?
Excuse me, did we alter the picture? No,
Change it.
no.
It's very different. And the ones you filed looks also very different. I don't see any of the gates that are on the tanks on both sides. Why is that?
The north gate would be not visible because it's covered by the trees to the right. And I believe I think if you look right there, you're seeing the gate on the other side, but I can't be wrong. So I think it's just the perspective of the rendering on the elevation. We did not alter this at all.
Okay. I have no further question for Mr. Lawrence.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lemke. Attorney Wheel, you have entered an appearance. Do you have any cross-examination for the company?
No questions from OTC. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. Attorney Klein, do you have any redirect?
I have one redirect question, and Mr. Lawrence, can you go back to the condition that talks about construction being completed within 2 years?
Remember which one that was? I don't remember offhand. The construction timeline?
Yep.
I apologize. I'm just gonna get it right here. So that's 7. Okay. My apologies, everyone. That's what I
Not a problem.
There it is.
Here we go. Okay. You testified that Typically, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the planting would be included in the typical definition of construction.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Was it your testimony that the planting would typically be included under the definition of construction?
It was.
Okay.
But as you,
And
yeah, go ahead.
okay. In reading per condition number 4, where it says that construction shall be completed within 2 years, and then it says landscaping shall be completed in the first planting season after completion of construction of the tanks.
Right.
Do you agree that it is reasonable to interpret that condition as construction referring to construction of the tanks as indicated in the last sentence of that
Right.
condition?
Yeah. So
And
as
that
described,
therefore construction
go ahead. Sorry.
under this condition would be completed when the second tank was completed.
Correct. So I'm going to clarify something first. We completed the tanks construction. It was the intention to paint the tanks in June of 2022. That would have represented the completion of the tanks within 2 years. The next planting season would have been the fall. The change in color, so the construction of 2 years would have been met by completing the tank, but you also need to paint the tank. The delay, as a request of the neighbors, the tank color, which by the way, I agree with the color they chose, so not at all against it, but that delayed the painting. As I stated previously, we made the determination to move concurrently to avoid essentially what would have been another 6 or 9 months if we waited to the fall, because we of that. So the construction would have been completed and the color painted in June of 22, meeting that requirement of 2 years. But because of the change of color, we could not paint, so we chose to continue working. And the painting was completed, as we said, in the fall, and was approved by Pura and the change of color. Did that answer your question?
Yes, and P&Z was aware of
P&Z.
the requested change to the color, and in
Yes.
fact did approve that change in color, as did the Pura.
Correct.
That's all I have. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lawrence. We will circle back to you for the read-ins, but for now we will move to our next matter. Mr. Lemke, I am happy to walk you through the adoption of your pre-filed testimony responses and written comments. I do want to advise you that for your comments and pre-filed testimony to be considered part of the evidentiary record, you would have to adopt them. But once they are adopted, they are subject to cross-examination by the company and any other participants, meaning that you would have to answer any questions that the company has on your comments or testimony this morning. So I want to pose the question to you. The option, there are 2 options. I can walk you through the adoption and they can be subject to cross, or I can include them as comments in the public record, which do not constitute part of the evidentiary record, but are public comments for the authority's consideration. So the choice is to you, Mr. Lemke, and I'm happy to explain either of those options further.
I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be part of the evidence, right? So I'm happy to adopt that as evidence.
Okay, very good. Then I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and then I'll ask the company, my staff in the Office of Consumer Counsel, if they have any questions for you. So the questions that I need to ask you are if you could first state your name and affiliation for the record, please.
Mark Lemke, Smart Water Westport.
Thank you. Were the interrogatories, testimony, and comments prepared by you or under your direction?
Yes.
Do you have any corrections or modifications to the documents that you submitted?
No.
If asked the same questions today in your pre-filed testimony, would your answers be the same?
I would add a couple of things based on the long presentation, but yes.
Okay, so do you adopt the pre-filed materials as your testimony today?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You are welcome to make a direct statement. The statement and any of your pre-filed materials are subject to cross, and we will begin cross-examination with the company. But I will first allow you to make any further direct statement that you would like to provide.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it is laid out on 50 pages in my testimony that Aquarion knew at the time they applied for the tanks that the tanks were entirely unnecessary. The tanks are not based on what Mr. Lauren just said on the Westport water need, but are crucial for the Southwest regional pipeline. As such, Aquarion also downplayed all kind of water conservation measures they already knew based on the Amy Vicker study. As such, Aquarion provided false narrative in Westport, violating statutes. Contrary to what Mr. Lawrence just stated, the Westport tanks were never planned. There's no increase in water, and water conservation is going down significantly.
I hate to do this, but I have to object to this direct testimony. It is going well beyond the scope of this proceeding. We have filed a motion to strike. We would ask that the authority not take testimony that goes beyond the scope, and we would move to strike the direct testimony that has just been given. We also object to the constant mischaracterizations of the company. The authority knows this company, and the mischaracterizations of the veracity of the company and its witness are very concerning to us. But I won't go any further into that.
Water situation in town and hiding payment to the Westport town law firm.
Okay, Mr. Olympia, give me 1 second here to rule on the motion. Attorney Klein, I've heard your motion, I've noted it. I'm going to characterize it in the same way as earlier with your motion to strike of the pre-filed testimony. I will take both motions under advisement and rule on them later. For now, I'm going to allow Mr. Lemke to complete his direct statement, and we'll rule on the motions at a later date. So so noted. And for now, I'm going to overrule for the moment, and we'll issue a written ruling later. Thank you. Mr. Lemke, please finish your direct statement.
I mean, going back to what Mr. Klein just said, the authority knows Aquarion and stated in the recent rate case that there's almost no evidence for $1 billion of capital expenses, $1 billion without evidence, right? And this pipeline and the tanks are part of that 1 billion constructed without evidence. And if it were indeed that these are needed and the way it needed, I'm asking, why are we still looking for public records? Why are still over 150 public records are disclosed? And every of these records, or almost every of these records, confirmed by the town, has been screened by Aquarion, and a couple of, as the authority know, and a couple of key documents were not disclosed. I continue. Aquarion paid the Westport town law firm without disclosing the conflict of interest. There is no conflict of interest check in the records of the town. Aquarion knew that there were contamination on the site, which, despite repeatedly asking, the company did not reveal and explain. The company also knew that the tank screening was never possible. The CEO promise was impossible to keep based on the pipelines in the ground. The renderings presented are different, and the company knew they're different because of the underground pipeline. The company planned it, but the tree warden did not feel comfortable explaining the height and verifying the height of the trees. We have been asking this for 2 years. We have not seen any height validation of the trees. The pump station, even after 7 years, has not been screened. It is not because of the color change requests by neighbors that the company didn't finish in time. It's the opposite. Neighbors asked repeatedly, and I'm happy to provide the emails, when is Aquarion doing the painting? It has been 6 months without progress. Aquarion also used illegal marketing, including a commercial at the Winter Olympic Games, and then saying it was water conservation. It was fire protection in February 2018. Aquarion built larger than authorized tanks, and the tank size was rather felt than planned. It is not within the same footprint. Critical data was not made public, and contrary to what the company stated, it was not a mistake by the authority. The authority plainly took what Aquarion filed. There are several plans, and only one is authorized and approved, because the only one that was shown publicly as a crime status is of August 2017. Aquarion also failed to provide critical reports, failed to provide the as-built survey in time. The status of fire protection is unclear because the methodology changed. The company violated the terms of length of construction, provided no wetland permit, and the noise has been unbearable. It is better now. This summer, for now, we have not heard anything. Aquarion also basically failed to provide answers to key questions, which is an insurmountable disadvantage because only Aquarion has the information. They were repeatedly saying that these are protected under Connecticut General Statute, which is not true. Water companies like Aquarion are not fall under. This is what the authority stated as an asymmetric access to information, which is basically a word for blank knowledge about Aquarion's operation. I'll stop here, but like to point out the bigger picture. If it was indeed, like Aquarion say, for Westport, the company did a lot to conceal the truth, which normally would never been possible. It shows a deliberate conduct to mislead. And even the P&Z chair at the time called Aquarion lies in front of the hearing. I state what I stated earlier. As Smartwater Westport, as a citizen, as a normal, regular people with a normal, regular job, we feel betrayed by the authority. The authority knew that what presented in front of them in Westport and in New Britain was not the truth. It was very different. The Department of Public Health also knew that the application filed by Aquarion was not reflecting the truth. And this is only possible because of a new transparency initiative, allowing people like me and others to follow the proceeding on YouTube, to allow a reopening and an open questioning, a holistic view on things. Here we are combining 3 dockets. And if you combine 3 dockets, you come to a very clear conclusion. If you separate like Pura did in the past, you'll come to very, very limited ruling and essentially defrauding ratepayers and people in Westport. And I'd like to finish and add that because of changing weather patterns, because of fire protection, paying more for water than needed is one thing. As we stated repeatedly, as I stated repeatedly, I consider Aquarion a danger for the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lemke. So we will allow cross-examination. If the company has any cross-examination, we'll begin with the company, as I don't believe the authority staff have questions at this time.
We have no cross-examination. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Wheel. Does the Office of Consumer Counsel have any cross?
No, we do not. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Karen.
No cross, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. I also do not have questions at this time, Mr. Lemke. I think your remarks speak for themselves, so I appreciate you providing the testimony and appearing here today. That concludes the portion of our agenda where we are taking evidence. I do want to turn back to the company and see if they have an opportunity to address the read-ins before I cover next steps on the agenda.
I haven't had a chance to do that quite yet, as you've been focused here.
Mr. Lawrence, can you actually, let me ask this question of your attorney, Attorney Klein. When you file the correspondence with the presentation, could you append the answer to the read-in, please?
We will endeavor to do so. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of next steps, the authority will be issuing a briefing prompt later today. So I would direct people's attention to that briefing prompt. We are requesting briefs by June 14th. Right now, I'm referring to the external calendar for this docket. Consistent with the authority's practices, what we will do is take those briefs under consideration, and we are endeavoring to issue a draft decision in this matter by July 12th. At that time, any participant that wishes to comment on the draft decision may do so through the process of written exceptions. Those written exceptions are due 2 weeks following issuance of the draft, which is July 26th. And then the authority is currently scheduled to take up the matter for a final decision at our regular meeting on August 7th at 10 a.m., which is our regular meeting that is broadcast on YouTube. Again, please pay attention to your emails, as the briefing prompts will go out in a notice from the authority later today, and invite any responses to any or all of those prompts in the form of a brief, which is a legal argument, by June 14th at 4 p.m., please. Are there any administrative matters before I bring this hearing to a close?
Yeah, Madam Chair, just quickly, Smart Water Westport doesn't have the resources for a full-fledged brief. We'll provide comments and refer to the pre-file testimony. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that clarification. Absolutely.
I'm
Attorney-
sorry, I'm actually having trouble with my volume, so I did not catch exactly what Mr. Lemke just said.
Yes, I repeat. Mr. Klein, you know that Aquarium, you are paid by Aquarium's ratepayers. So whatever you bill, and this is together with the rate case, I would assume 2 million now, you get that with a profit paid, right? So our resources are zero. So that's why I said we will not have, and the authority knows that, we will not have the capacity, the resources to provide a brief as normally you would do. We would instead provide comments and refer to the pre-filed testimony.
Okay, so let me sum this up. I took the comment as a request to provide a response to the briefing prompts in the form of comments as opposed to a legal brief, as Mr. Lemke is not represented by counsel. And my response is that the authority does allow non-attorneys to respond to briefing prompts, and that is the extent of what I was responding. Attorney Klein.
We would have no objection to that, provided that Mr. Lemke recognizes that the briefs are limited to, number one, the scope of this proceeding, number two, to the evidence that is currently in the record, and it is not an opportunity to further supplement the record with any new facts or allegations.
If I may respond to that, we may file a motion that this case is transferred A, to a different court, or B, will opening a motion to open an investigation into the Southwest Regional Pipeline Project. Thank you.
Okay. We will take up those motions if and when they are filed. What I will say is I think it's an excellent opportunity to remind all participants that the authority's briefing rules are that it is a summation of evidence that is in the record, and the record is being held open at this point for the sole purpose of receiving the presentation that was presented today and the response to the read-ins. After that time, the evidentiary record is closed. So the briefing should refer to evidence that has been admitted into the record to date, and the company's positions and arguments around that. Any new evidence that, and this is a standard instruction that I give across all dockets, any new evidence that is attempted to enter into the record via briefs is disregarded automatically by the authority. It must be a citation to evidence that has been admitted to date. So there's no motion that's required with respect to briefs. It is something that the authority automatically does in terms of disregarding evidence that enters or is attempting to enter the record at that point. Is that clear to everyone, or happy to answer any clarifying questions at that? Okay, with that, I've already covered Attorney Klein.
Yes, I'm sorry. We want to be responsive to the read-in, but could we get clarification on precisely what the authority is looking for in the read-in so that we can respond accordingly?
Sure, Attorney LaFave, I might need you to restate, please. I think it was a date question.
Yes, give me one moment. Okay, so I'm referring to the tank redesign plan that was submitted in response to interrogatory Pura 37. It's attachment 1. And I'm asking what the reasoning is for it being dated February 2020, but in response to interrogatory 37, it stated it was submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission on, I believe, June 4th. Let me just try to, yes, on June 4th. I'm asking if there's a reason that it's dated February 2020, but submitted June 4th. And yes, I believe that's it.
And is that June 4th, 2020?
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Okay, so I've already covered next steps. So again, I'll refer everyone to the briefing prompts that come out later today, and we will look forward to the responses. So with that, I want to thank everyone who participated in today's hearing. The authority will take all of the information and motions and objections under advisement, and we will look forward to reading the briefs. Thank you very much, and we wish you a good rest of the day.